when you're considering making a move, start a journal, start a family journal. Everybody must decide together why you're doing this. What's the pull factor? What's the push factor? What's the trigger? If you've got a problem with your marriage, moving is not going to fix it. If you've got a problem with your kids, that's not going to fix it. You've got to fix it yourself.
This episode is brought to you by Sable International, building futures beyond borders.
Welcome back to the Relocated South African. So what does it take to pack up your life in South Africa, move across the world, and not just survive, but build something remarkable on the other side? My guest today did exactly that. Her name is Merle. Welcome, Merle, and looking forward to hear your story today.
Good morning, Jan. Lovely to speak to you. And I think the Relocated South African is an incredible program. Wonderful to listen to people's stories, learn from people's successes and failures. And really, that's the gist that we have, is to help each other.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. So maybe to start with, where are you talking to us from today?
So I'm in Malta, spelled Malta. Yes, when I came first here, I didn't know where it was. In fact, I came here kicking and screaming. I didn't want to come here. I didn't know where it was on the map. I had no intentions of coming here. And I've now been here for 15 years. To put it on the map, it's a Mediterranean island, a republic, a separate independent republic, which is south of Sicily, north of Africa, and it's in the Mediterranean Ocean. So it's 316 square kilometers. I mean, you can land about 2 jumbo jets and then you run out of space. But it's a long cry from, being at school in Krugersdorp, Nelspruit, Bloemfontein. And funny enough, there's another story part of that from Bloem. Yeah, but we had lived in Mauritius before, so it seems like I'm attached to the M Islands, Merle, Malta, Mauritius.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, you've touched on it. So I always ask people kind of where you're from in South Africa and where you grew up, went to school and so on. And then, kind of what led to the decision to leave.
Yeah. So, firstly, I mean, I had been a boarding school girl, so I'd been on the train, believe it or not, to Bloemfontein overnight. It was fantastic days. We used to travel on the train with the army boys and everything. And life was wonderful. I'm talking, the kind of early 80s when you're kind of a little bit oblivious of what's going on in the world. And started to worked in the hotel industry, got to know a lot of people, which was really great. And kind of the dream was I was going to have the house and the dog and the white picket fence and things like that. And it didn't kind of work out that way. Although I ran a very successful business for many years, unfortunately, the international competitiveness became a problem for us small businesses competing at that time. And then BEE became a problem in terms of my business. So I had to close my business, which was a painful experience. But also learned a lot from it. And then the opportunity came up to relocate.
Okay. And your business at the time, that was conferencing, is that right?
Yes. So I'd had a background in the hospitality industry, working for the then Carlton Hotel, which not many people will know.
I worked in the Carlton Centre, believe it or not. Yeah.
In the Carlton Centre, yeah, gosh, It was such a hub of excitement. And in fact, we had Mandela's release party there, celebration party. So it saw so much history in its time, and we were exposed to so many different things. And then I went into hospitality and event management. Actually, I also worked at the Sunnyside Park Hotel, which many people will remember from Friday nights. So always good social places. And then worked for a company who ran a large secretaries event. So we were very much on the forefront of empowering the new generation, new people in the workplace, women. We helped Sasol with listing on the New York Stock Exchange. So there was a lot of exciting things happening in the events industry, primarily educational events, yeah. So, and then I did a book on event management, which was great because then I started running workshops on the ABC of event management, got to know a lot of people at different levels and interacted a really special place with people.
Okay.
And
And
yeah.
and you say the opportunity to go abroad, how did that come about?
Well, in fact, I met my partner a little bit later on in life after quite a, painful divorce, as these things do. And he was a lot older than me. He himself came from the UK in the 70s, when Britain didn't have power, didn't have jobs, didn't have anything. And he came to make a life in South Africa at that time. And was at that stage opening shoe shops around South Africa. So he knew South Africa very well. And he had retired and decided it was time to go. So he was living in Gibraltar at the time. We were worried about the future of my daughter, and we were worried about where we could live. Different passports, all of those kinds of things. So we went off to Mauritius to see how we could make that work as a relocation option. We were kind of in between houses, 1 foot here, 1 foot there. My daughter was finishing school, starting university, all these different things happening. And we love Mauritius. I've always loved Mauritius. It's just the most beautiful place to visit. But it just didn't tick our boxes, and it kind of comes across as cheap. But once you have to start paying the airfares, not as a tourist, but as somebody living there, it just didn't work for us. And then Malta became a member of the EU. And my partner said, let's go and have a look at Malta. And I promise you, I had no idea where it was. And I was, I was like, really? We'd just been through all the admin of the bureaucracy of getting into Mauritius or getting the documents and all that stuff. So literally when we arrived here, and it's not a pretty place to land because we have these perceptions, and I kind of thought, we've arrived in Benghazi. And you'll hear a lot of people say that when they first land here, because there's a lot of old buildings. Some of them are still from the Second World War. And I thought, no, I'm getting on a plane. I'm going straight back. I'm not coming here. And so we pushed through, and he said, listen, it's just going to be our backup plan. It's just going to be our backup plan. And at the time, they had a very attractive residency program because Malta, with its history, having been part of the Byzantine times, to having the Turks invaded them, to then having the French invasion, then having the British, and then the Second World War, they've had to duck and dive and make things work to keep the island competitive and viable. So we came here, and then, after our second visit, we just decided this is going to be home. Our kids love it here. It was easy for them. We have a daughter in America. Subsequently, my daughter moved to Amsterdam. We found living here very, very easygoing. English is a big, big thing. When you can walk in the street, you can walk into a shop, when you can speak to an accountant, when you can buy a car in English, it's a huge thing. So that was a big benefit for us, a big benefit.
I can imagine. So just you talk about flying there. How would one fly there from Joburg?
So Joburg, our most direct route would go through Istanbul. Turkish Airlines is a really good connection.
Okay, and
then through Istanbul to Malta. But we have about 50 commercial airlines coming in here, from Singapore to Hong Kong to Australia to Dubai. In fact, America just started flying this week directly, which is a 9-hour flight from America. And it's 2 hours from anywhere in Europe. So the connections are fantastic. They really are fantastic. And because it's a member of the Schengen, once you're in the Schengen, it makes life very easy, unlike going through the UK or somewhere like that, which
even Ireland is now becoming a problem for South Africans with visas and stuff. They can get visas, but they can't get appointments, is what I hear.
But then we've got to ask ourselves why, because people abused it, and that is very important. When you make this move, don't think there's a shortcut, Nowhere worth going has got a shortcut. You've got to do it properly. And we destroy it for the future generations because, if you think about the days when we could go to, I mean, I'm talking obviously from being an older person, you could go and get a 2-year working visa in the UK and then you could now you can't even do that anymore,
Yeah,
Why? Because it was abused.
I spoke to somebody last night who lives here, but with a South African passport to get a 10-year visa to the UK, something like 1,600 euros now. I mean, that's expensive. Yeah.
No, I don't even think that's 10 years. I think that's 6 months. I think
Oh,
it's,
really? Is
it's
it
like,
that? I don't know. It
yeah,
just
no,
sounds
it's crazy.
ridiculous. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Anyway, just Malta itself, people, when you say there's all these airlines, obviously there's a big financial services industry and people come there for those benefits. But there's also huge tourism. Is that right? Nice beaches and...
Absolutely. Yeah, Malta's got a lot to offer. I mean, for example, if you look at over history, I mean, we've got some of the World UNESCO heritage sites. We've got the oldest temples in the world, older than the pyramids. We've got underwater caves. We've got cathedrals. We've got 365 churches. So there's no ways you don't have to go to church every day. Well, it is a primary Christian country, but obviously they do give freedom of practice. There's incredible walks. We have lovely oceans, deep sea dives. From the Second World War, there's a lot of underwater marine. We've actually got underwater marine museums where people come deep sea diving to see. So, I mean, you may know, and I didn't know it myself, but from the history of Malta, it was isolated for 3 years in the Second World War, and actually saved the Second World War. They, as a country, won the George Cross Award for their courage in fighting with the Germans. So there's an incredible stoicism that goes with that as well.
Oh, amazing. And, well, you said initially, it didn't work for you, you didn't like it. What kind of changed? What happened that you actually said, well, this is actually not such a bad idea?
What changed for me is once I got here and I started to assist South Africans. So I started a group called SAFA's Malta, South African Family and Friends in Malta. It kind of happened a bit by default because I was doing it for myself, and then a couple of people asked me. And then when I started to see the journey that people were taking, either, and everybody's on a different journey. Some people are on a journey of adventure, some people are on a journey of tragedy, some people are on a growth journey. And I started to see how Malta actually ticks so many boxes. And I got very comfortable here. Yes, I'd go back to South Africa and think, oh, I'd love to have the garden and the swimming pool and all that stuff. But now we've got a whole swimming pool around us.
That's true.
You walk in the streets, it's safe. The living costs by comparison are actually very reasonable. For example, we don't have local council taxes here. So if you own a property, you own your property. You only maintain your property. You don't pay the council for anything. So then you started to look at it, and I started to compare and look at it, and I thought, and I've got to make this happen for myself because these people are really battling. And as I said, my partner's a bit older, so he wasn't kind of a people's let's go out and do things. So I got involved with charities. I got involved with the Malta Guide Dogs Foundation because I'm a charity lover. I love animals, but I can't go near an animal shelter. That breaks my heart. And got to know the people really well and just thought, these are my people, Lisma Mensa. And when you get to know the people at a cultural level, we're so similar. We've been through so many difficult times culturally. If you follow the history line of South Africa, our independence, becoming a republic, our freedom from the our Commonwealth ties, all that, the parallels are so there. Hardworking people, and just seeing how difficult it is for South Africans to make a move and to find somewhere, I realized, take this chance. This is my chance. And I did. And I'm really pleased I did. And subsequently, I'm very pleased. We've got a lovely community here. In fact, last week, we just had our annual beach braai. We had 80 odd people on the beach, safers with our biltong and our boerewors, And young people, young and old, all chatting, giving each other advice. And that's beautiful when you can create a community that's finding its identity. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you've got to find your own identity. And so
Absolutely.
that for me was deciding this is my identity.
And I mean, you said something about, getting out there and doing stuff. That for me seems to be something that is so critical when you move countries, is actually to go out and not sit at home and wait for things to come to you, because they won't. I always say, because we have a funny accent, it doesn't mean people are going to come and look us up. We've got to get out there and actually become part of where you live. Otherwise, it's gonna be really hard.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mentioned to you a funny connection with Malta. As I mentioned, I was at school in Bloemfontein, and as it turns out, I was at Tunisia High School. I happened to be with Macy. But the guy that became the headmaster afterwards was Maltese, and he led the school to incredible greatness. And I thought, now where's this connection? And then there was a very famous author, Dr. Edward de Bono, who people might know as the doctor of lateral thinking. And I only discovered later that he was actually from Malta. He used to come to South Africa a lot, and I met him a lot of times. He probably told me he was from Malta, and it went over my head. But the tools that he gives is something that I really advise South Africans on, or anybody really, is his 6 thinking caps. And it's a story that I say to people: when you're considering making a move, start a journal, start a family journal. Everybody must decide together why you're doing this, right? Why are you making this decision? What's pushing you? What's the pull factor? What's the push factor? What's the trigger? If you've got a problem with your marriage, moving is not going to fix it. If you've got a problem with your kids, that's not going to fix it. You've got to fix it yourself. But Dr. Edward de Bono uses some fantastic tools, and he puts on the different hats. And it is on my website if somebody wants to have a look at it, on maltalifestyle.com. But he puts on the different hats, and he says, look at the facts. What are the facts right now? The facts are, okay, unemployment, or the facts are you've had a terrible experience and you feel you need to move, or the facts are you want to adventure, you want to go out. Then you look at it and you say, okay, these are the facts. I've got a South African passport. That's a fact. Where do I go? Where can't I go? Then you look at it and you say, what are the opportunities? Okay, my opportunities are either I've got good skills, or I'm willing to learn, or maybe I've got a granny, a great-great-grandmother. I'm going to go and track that down, and I'm going to find out if there's some generational aspect I can get. Or yes, maybe I've got a small inheritance and I can go off and I can invest that in my future, not in a fancy car, but actually in my future. Then you look at the emotional side. Yes, of course. And what you mentioned earlier on before we spoke about the parents left behind is that I see too many people getting too caught up in the emotional side. And then it becomes worse because they wait and wait, and then it becomes too late. So you have to also, put on your big girl panties and say, I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to do this. And look at what are the admin things. And that's another factor that I find people get terribly wrong. And I know that, apostille to one of your clients, but get your documents together. Don't wait. Get the stuff. If you think you're going to move or don't think you're going to move, make sure you've got all of those documents as if you had an opportunity tomorrow to get on a plane. Be ready. Be ready. For anything that happens.
Should you leave a back door open in South Africa?
Everybody wants insurance. And unfortunately, life doesn't give you insurance in any form or matter. Yes, of course, having an open door gives you a bit of a policy, a bit of a thing. But I see, unfortunately, firstly, with property, people think, okay, we're going to rent our property out. It never really has appreciated. We haven't seen a property appreciate in South Africa for the past few years. So I think you have to put your money where your expenses are going to be. And if your expenses are going to be in a new country, new rentals, medical expenses, moving stuff, family, then you need to bite the bullet. If you're young, if you're older, obviously there are different decisions. But don't be frightened to take the risk. I'm in a fortunate position in that we had some money and that was put aside. But at the age of 50, I had to go and redo my driver's license. People said, "Oh, you can do this and you can pay that one." I said, "No, I'm going to go and do it. I'm going to go and get it done right now." So whether it's making a decision about your life or a small move that you have to make, you have to live in the future. You can't live in the past. And I think often when people do live with this, "Oh, well, I'll go back attitude, it holds you back. It's almost like a little demon sitting there, you can come back, you can come back, you can come back. Of course you can go back. You can go back anytime. Just don't burn your bridges, do things the right way and focus on the future. And if it doesn't work, well, then don't look at it as going back, saying, "Okay, well, I'm going on a different journey now." Change the narrative in your mind. It's not about failing. It's not about if this works or doesn't work. It's okay, this is my next step. Then when I get to that step, that's going to be my next step. And if that step includes going back to South Africa, that's another step. It's not a failure. It's like people feel like they're pariah because they've left. Our forefathers did. What did the foot trekkers do? They're the ones that started it. We've got it in our genes. We're adventurers. We want to make things happen.
True. And more, when you look at South Africans there in Malta, what do you think they find the most difficult to adapt?
I think Europe itself, it can be difficult because of space. The cost of space, the cost of housing is, you wouldn't have a big yard with a swimming pool and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's the first kind of thing, is the beauty of our country. You can't up that and move it. And you have to just sit down and say, "Okay, what am I looking for?" Here it is beautiful as well. It's different beauty. So I think that concept of changing your mindset, and that's why you have to come with a blank canvas. You have to say, what are the important things for me? The important things to me are safety for my family, are reasonable living costs, or a reasonable lifestyle and a good job. The adjustment to culture can be difficult. South Africans are typically hard workers. We're communicators. We speak our minds. That is not always the case in other environments and in other cultural societies. So, but the important thing is to adjust to it, work with what you've got, work on the strengths, don't focus on the disadvantages that are there.
And is Malta still an option?
Oh, yes, very much so. Malta will always be an option because, a bit like Cape Town and Durban, it's a trading port. It's a, if you look at Malta from a point of view of its population, we have 450,000 Maltese living in Malta and about 200,000 expats. Malta doesn't have natural resources, so it has to create its resources, and it's done that through the financial services. It's done it through financial services, through gaming, through aviation, through boating, through tourism, through education. Do you know that 85,000 students a year come to Malta to study English?
That's amazing.
So they come from all over, and they're not just students, they're business people who might move here for a year because been taught, they're from Germany or Spain or somewhere, and they want to learn English for business and live in an English environment. To students, we have the largest boating registration in the Mediterranean. Now, they don't all boat here, but they flag with Malta. So Malta gives a good flagging, it gives a good seaman's insurance, it gives a good opportunity. You look at the big cruise liners, who coincidentally hire a lot of South Africans, if you look at the MSC cruises and those kind of things. So because we have this fluid expat community, there's always opportunity. Our unemployment is 3.5%. That's unheard of. Is it easy to get a job in Malta? Well, that's one element. Highly qualified people, they offer you a tax benefit. So if you base yourself here, you pay a flat 15% tax. But that doesn't mean you work here. You can work for an international company. And your family can be based here. You can come in on a retirement program. And I've relocated a couple who's 70 years old, and they are so happy here. They're living here cheaper than they lived in South Africa.
Wow.
And they've got a quality of life. We've got students coming here. Malta accepts the matric certificate. Not all universities, but for example, I've got an agreement and I promote South Africans to come to the Institute of Tourism Studies. Obviously, that's part of my heart because I come from the hospitality industry, but you can come to get into a higher education here with a matric certificate, and you will learn and be able to walk out after a year and get a job in Europe. Um, you know, you can't just get that anywhere. Now, somebody who's done that has actually become one of the leading guys in cryptocurrency in Malta. He started in hospitality, he did his finances, and then he went into crypto. So it just has so many opportunities. Ryanair have just opened a new hangar here, and they're employing 500 people in aviation.
Wow,
Um,
that's amazing.
so VistaJet employ a lot of South Africans. I think they employ about 300 South Africans, whether it's scheduling, technical, logistics, services behind the scenes. And those are markets that move. You know, we have a lot of youngsters that they come here for 2-3 years, then they move on. We've got family guys that are saying, okay, I need a few years to settle my family, then I'm going to go on and move on. And the weather's a big factor. We don't have a downtime.
That's awesome. And well, in terms of passports, we always talk about the Groen Mamba and getting a second passport. How difficult is it to get Malta citizenship and a passport?
It's very tough. It's very tough.
Okay.
And the reason is because it is a small population. And it's not like other places in Europe where it's after 6 years you can naturalize. I mean, I've been here 12 years and I still live on the Groen Mamba. But I've got residency, and residency is just as good as, after you've been here for 6 years, you can go through a program and you get something called long-term residency. Yes, it's tough because your work and that is dependent on a sponsored job. And then after a while, you can apply for passports and citizenship. They do have an incredible residency program, which is such a good secret, and people don't take advantage of it. But really, for 150,000 euros, you can get permanent residency. There's eligibility criteria that you have to reach, but you don't have to purchase a property, and you don't have to, put out big. For 150,000, you get permanent residency for your family. You can run a business in Malta. You can bring in granny and grandpa. They don't have to live here permanently. There's no minimum stay. It is probably the best insurance you can buy in the world.
Oh, wow. So and that 150 is a cost. You pay that.
It's a once-off. It goes towards the diligence processes. It's a contribution to government. You have to have your own medical insurance, and you have to, be self-sufficient. You can't just now become a board of the state. But the big thing there is it gives you the freedom to move around. And then it's renewable after 5 years. You just have to maintain an address in Malta, which can be rented. And then you can have free movement within the Schengen, within the 90-day, 180-day rule. But it just is the most incredible thing, and people just don't understand how amazing it is. The other side also is that you can own property in Malta without residency. And that's a big factor for a lot of people who are thinking, my kids are going to want to go to school one day overseas. Where do I invest the money? Well, just by putting money in property in Malta, you don't have to be a resident. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You can rent it out. I mean, to give you an example, I bought my property 15 years ago for 350,000 euros. The rand was 12 to 1 at the time. 12 to 1. The rand we know is 19, 20 to 1 at the moment. And my property is valued at 850,000 euros.
Oh, that's amazing. So, and for people coming in, is the rental market quite high?
It is. That is probably your biggest chunk because there's such a demand for it. So we do find that that's one of the big adjustments people have to make, is be willing to adjust. What do I want? Comfort? Do I want comfort, or do I want convenience? Those kinds of things. But then, for example, if you rent here in Malta and you're on a residency program or you're working, schooling is free. Medical is free. We've got a friend who's been treated. In fact, there's been a few South Africans treated for cancer recently. I had breast cancer a couple of years ago. I was treated here. I would say it's the best in the world and very, very reasonable.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah. It's such it feels like it's a bit of a hidden secret, that people just didn't know about it. And good for you. So that's kind of your business. You mentioned the website. It's you just maybe repeat it.
MaltaLifestyle.com, all one word, MaltaLifestyle.com. But listen, Jan, it's like Bovril and Marmite. You like the one or you don't like any of it, but mommy says, listen, you got to eat it or that's all you're getting for lunch.
Yeah, exactly. No, that is amazing. Wow. Well, we kind of covered all the things like medical and lifestyle and all these things you've spoken about, cost of living. If sitting there now and thinking back, what do you miss about South Africa?
I miss the food. I miss our beautiful beaches. I miss our gorgeous wildlife. I do miss the bush. And actually last year I took 3 of my Maltese friends to South Africa. And as I said, I work with the blind people. So I brought 2 of my blind friends to South Africa and we walked with the elephants and we touched the lions. And that for me was just something we take so for granted, is having that on our doorstep, and that we really should treasure it. We really should treasure it. So I do miss that, what's inside of me, the bushveld and the smells, the beautiful scenery, and the people I do miss. But you know what? I've made some very, very good friends here, and I'm not saying I've lost my friends, but my friends have moved on as well. Family have moved on. My brother's one's in Dubai, one's in the UK. My daughter's in Amsterdam. My other daughter's in America. People move on. So you've just got to make it work for yourself.
And we just spread all over the world. And what unfortunately happens is that the youngsters, the grandkids, they don't know their cousins. They maybe once every so many years they see them. So it's like a whole generation that's just gone, and it shouldn't be like that. But unfortunately, that's what it is. But for me, there's a great deal of sadness and grief in that. That we accept it and we move on. We moved here because we want to be close to them, but it's I guess the only way to describe it is to be grateful. But
history repeats itself. It's happened before. It's happening again. And really, it's not what happens to you that counts. It's what you do about it.
Yeah, very true. No, I totally agree with you. And in terms of, the next step for you, you carrying on with this Malta Lifestyle business. Any other new ventures on the horizon?
Oh, that's very kind of you to ask. Yes. Look, my events is my passion. So I really want to develop event professionals. And I do that with my work in charity and with working with the South Africans and really looking after youngsters, bringing young people onto the new platform. And so South Africans that are willing to, instead of sending the kids off to Stellenbosch where they just become older students, if they want to send their kids out here, we're a lovely, wonderful community, and we want to help South Africans expand and grow and go and become wonderful human beings that they are, and give them the opportunities. So the youngsters is really my next passion, brought into the things, and then looking after the guide dogs is wonderful as well. And when I'm in South Africa, I promote Malta, and when I'm in Malta, I promote South Africa. I think last year we sent about 600 tourists to South Africa just through our network. So it's not about leaving, it's just about being replaced or relocated, as you say.
And when you say looking after youngsters and youngsters coming there, do you find that it's all race groups in South Africa? Are you finding, for instance, that some Black parents are also worried about the future of their kids?
Much more the latter, quite interesting. And we are seeing that more and more. And not only because of the kind of the political, the socio-economic scenario in South Africa, also because we've got this new generation of lazy dudes, and we really got to get them off the couch and moving.
Yeah.
And you can't do that if you're mollycoddling them. You can't. They've got to be, sent out and they've got to do stuff. And it's too easy when they're at home. Maybe I'm speaking very harshly because I was a boarding school girl and I understood it. But I do think that we've got to toughen up our kids across all races, genders, everything. We've really got to toughen them up.
Absolutely. I think that is absolutely critical. One of the interesting kind of quotes from discussions on this platform is somebody said that there's two things in immigration. One is the cost of immigration and one is the price of immigration. Would you agree with that? Because the one is the physical money and all the red tape and others, and the other one is like the impact that it has on you. And sometimes that is a win, sometimes that is a loss, but it's kind of a way to look at it. Do you agree with that?
There's no doubt that there's heartache. There's absolutely no doubt there's heartache. And we all deal with it different way. One of the saddest things is South Africans will start slating South Africa when they leave, because that's their way of justifying it for themselves. And then others will, part of my mechanism was I just blocked it out. I kind of, well, don't think about this. I'm in this box now, and this is what I'm dealing with. And you go through it, through different things. You'll have a death in the family, which will raise a whole lot of other issues. You'll have a wedding and you can't be there because you can't afford to go. And then you feel like the outsider. Or people say, oh, you're so lucky you're abroad. And you just want to say, yeah, well, actually, it would be nice if we were all together. So I think your factor in terms of the cost and the price are very relevant. But then there's the price of not doing it. And that's the other side, And I'm reminded of Alice in Wonderland when she was facing the crossroads and, the Cheshire Cat said to her, well, which road, where are you going? Because he asked, she said, which road should I take? He said, well, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And so success has to be intentional. We can't be waiting for somebody else to make up our mind for us. And yes, I understand that people have some scenarios that are really out of their control. But what is in control is how you deal with it and where you go with it, and one step at a time.
Oh, that's absolutely true. I think, you mentioned this thing of not slating South Africa, and people have said they feel more South African when they live abroad than they do in South Africa, which is great because I think that's very positive. On the other side, we've recently had some reels on social media from discussions where somebody said that she's gone back to South Africa after London, 22-second reel, 300,000 plus views, and you cannot believe the comments, on both sides. But there's a lot of people that are exceptionally negative about people who leave, people who stay behind, like you say, some slate South Africa, but on the other hand, people in South Africa that almost, feel that is disloyal to emigrate. The one thing I find that, I cannot judge anybody. I think if there's one thing that I've learned in this process of doing all these episodes is everyone makes a decision based on what's right for him or her. It's not for me to judge, because as you say, something happens to somebody or a job opportunity or something happens at that moment, you make the call. You do what's right for you, not what's right for anybody else who wants to judge you. So, but it really does stay hard. Mil, just maybe getting to the end, if you have to speak to somebody now who's sort of on the verge of deciding, should I go overseas, should I stay in South Africa, what would your message be?
There's a Chinese proverb that says the teacher will be found when the student is ready. And that really is the individual has to decide. And it's like when you're having a child, are you ever really ready to have a child? Or do you have a child and then you get on with it?
Mm.
I just encourage people to go through the steps, think through it logically. And if there is a trigger that you have to respond to, respond. Don't wait. Do what you need to do. Delay doesn't help anybody.
I think that is absolutely relevant. It's and you can always go back. Nothing is always forever. There may be a cost to going back, but nothing is forever. And I think that is critical. And I really think what you've said today is so important. This idea of getting involved and not sitting on the sideline and thinking things are going to happen. You've got to kind of make them happen.
Absolutely.
That for me is absolutely critical. And I think you're doing amazing work helping people. If you help one person, you've succeeded, and that is just amazing. So well done. And
Good. Yes. No, and
thank
we've
you.
got beautiful people. That's the thing. We've got beautiful people. We're such an incredible source of inspiration. And the people around us love us too. Obviously, some of us don't behave so well, and then we give them a bit of a snort clap.
That's true. Yeah, I think we sometimes, I think the big problem is people don't get our humor, man. Our sense of humor is just different. Oh my word, it's. But anyway, it's nice when we meet other South Africans and we can laugh about the same stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Anyway, we'll definitely put all your contact details on the show notes and so on, and make sure that people know where they could contact you. Last question:
Absolutely.
Do you see yourself going back to South Africa on a permanent basis?
I actually made that decision this year. I turned 60 and I want to stay in Malta. I love Malta. I feel safe here. Everything's around me. I feel well connected. Should I have to go back to South Africa or choose to go back, that might be in the future. But for now, this is where I want to be. Okay. I'm happy here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the work you're doing. I mean, and I think it's very inspiring listening to people's stories, definitely.
Yeah, I think the nice thing is that it's not Facebook stories. It's not pretty pictures. This is the real story. And that's what I like about it. Yeah. So, yeah.
And I mean, in fact, I must get one or two of them to get in touch with you. We've got a lady here. She's been so successful. She started a child's program because she was dealing with the problem of her children. She started a children's program. We've got South Africans that are doing amazing stuff. Amazing. And the question is, would they be able to do that in their own environment? Probably not, So it's not always bad news. It's just opportunity.
It's opportunity. Absolutely.
So whereabouts in Portugal are you?
I'm in Lagos on the southwest coast. It's very much like Cape Town. It's cold water, warm land, lots of wind, but a really nice environment.
Well, pop over to us. I believe we've got flights that come directly. Let me know when you're coming and I'll put you up here. We've got an extra bedroom. Come and visit.
That'll be awesome. Thank you so much, Mo.
Good.
Thank you. And to our listeners, if this episode resonated with you, please share it and like it, and also follow our website, therelocatedSouthAfrican.com. Until next time.
This episode is brought to you by Sable International, building futures beyond borders.